My name is Prince McClinton. I'm an artist, an entrepreneur, and the CEO of Art of Visuals, as well as the Art of Visuals mobile application in the AOV Creative Agency. Flew out here from Boise, Idaho this morning to be with you guys this evening to host this lovely panel. We have some amazing photographers here today, some top talent, and we're basically going to be covering a few different topics. Photography, of course, video, travel, and the business of content creation. Our first guest on the left is landscape photographer Colby Brown. Welcoming and joining next up, fine art photographer Brooke Shaden. We have lifestyle photographer Jose Silva. And we have lifestyle photographer Josh Alvarez. And I don't want to block you. Last but not least, we have the lovely street photographer Paola Frankie. So to go ahead and get us started, I'd love for you guys to share a little bit more about yourselves with our lovely audience, and we'll start with you, Kobe, and we'll work our way down.
I think everyone just heard me speak for like an hour, for too much. So for those that weren't listening when I just gave a talk, my name is Colby Brown. I'm a landscape, travel, wildlife, humanitarian photographer, a little bit of everything. I've been doing this for 12 years. I spent some time working for National Geographic. I own a couple of my own companies, and I actually live out here on the East Coast now. So I'm just like an hour and a half west of here, out in the Poconos of Pennsylvania. So newly out here, happy to be here, and happy to share the stage with these awesome people.
My name is Brooke Shaden. I'm a fine art photographer. I do really weird, creepy, dark self-portraits that are all staged. I also do a few other art forms, especially writing. I have a couple of charitable foundations, so I spend a lot of time doing philanthropic work. And that's me in a nutshell.
Cool. My name is Jose Silva. I am a commercial photographer. I live in New Jersey, have been there for about 20 years. I've been doing photography professionally for about 6. Before that, I was actually a high school teacher, language arts and special education. Thank you. I've kind of gone through all the different stages of being a photographer. I've done studio photography, fashion, street. Lately, I've been really into music and concert photography. Music is probably my biggest passion aside of photography, so kind of been happy to merge the two worlds. And yeah, that's about it. Happy to be here.
My name is Josh Alvarez. I go by On The Jam on my social media. I'm from Rockland County, New York, and I've been shooting for about 6 years now.
Hi guys, thank you so much for coming. My name is Paola Frankie, also known as Monaris on social media. I'm a street photographer and a visual storyteller. I've been taking photos for the past 6 years. A year and a half ago, I quit my job to pursue photography full time. So I've been traveling for the past year nonstop, and I'm doing what I love. So thank you for coming.
Woo-hoo. Excellent. Thank you, everyone, for introducing yourselves. So I'm going to ask the questions, and if anyone feels drawn to answer, feel free to just kind of step in and go ahead and answer. So, and once we're done, we'll do a quick Q&A and make sure we get your guys' questions that you guys have for these lovely artists up here answered. So to start, the year is 2018. As an artist, we have more mediums than any time in history to tell various stories. Why did you guys choose photography as your medium to tell stories?
I guess I'll start. Originally, I was a music producer. I started producing tracks for a lot of different artists, Fabulous, Jim Jones, Petey Pablo, just to name a few of them. But then I had an artist myself, a guy named Nick Ralph from California, and we started filming music videos. And then I kind of just got drawn into photography from making music videos, being behind the scene, with the camera and stuff like that. and I started posting photos on my iPhone, just on Instagram, and people were kind of liking my stuff, and the following kind of grew. And then from there, I kind of just stopped making music and just started doing photography. So it kind of just happened out of nowhere.
That's beautiful, nice and organic. Anyone else?
I started with photography because it felt more accessible than a lot of other art forms, where I think that so often when you think about the fine arts, you think about painting and all of these elements that take so long to learn, and I felt like photography was something that so many people were doing. But I am extremely unattached to photography as a medium, so I'm very interested in exploring tons of different mediums with the same mindset that I started photography. Like, if you want to do it, then it is totally achievable, so we should sort of take photography as like, you know, it's accessible, but so is everything else. And actually, photography isn't that accessible in a lot of ways. But yeah, that's why I started.
No, absolutely. Thank you for sharing. In today's world, we all have tons of gear. We have tons of lenses. We have tons of gear choices. I'm sure a lot of you guys in the crowd like to travel and get out and see the world and adventure. Same with you guys on stage. But what is your must-have gear? If you guys were going on any assignment, any location, like what's the one camera and the one lens that you guys are taking? Like what is the stuff that you, and maybe it's not one, maybe it's two, but what is the must-have gear?
To me, I guess I have to say my Sony A7R Mark III and the 2470 GM lens. I mean, I can use that lens for everything, for portraits, landscape. It's wide, you can zoom in, so I would have to say that one.
If I was going to do a counterpoint to that, I would simply say that I love the 24-70 as well. It's kind of your all-around walk-around lens. Because I shoot a wide variety of things as well, sometimes I actually find myself gravitating towards more the ends of the spectrum. So like the 16 to 35, again, I prefer the GMs over the F4s just for more flexibility for stuff happening at night and low light. But since I was allowed a second lens, I'd also say probably like the 100 to 400, just because it's such an amazing piece of glass and works so great for wildlife, for portrait work, for candid moments. It's pretty special, and it's not that much bigger than the 70 to 200 either, or heavier.
There's no special workout regimen for?
No, for the new 400, which I have, that's a different story. But for the 100 to 400, no, it's literally about the same size, fits in your bag, and it's just a touch heavier than the 70 to 200, according to the 2.8 GM at least.
That's awesome. So as artists, through our artwork, we're always trying to communicate different things, right? And I mean, that's kind of what being an artist really is having some type of vision and communicating, whether it's an idea, it's political, whatever it may be, you're communicating something. So what is it that you guys try to communicate with your artwork, and how do you get your photos to actually communicate that message?
Oh, well, I'll take this one. What I want to do personally as a mission is to show that there is so much beauty in darkness. And that's something that I think so many people shy away from. And it's a difficult thing to try to convince people of because nobody wants to think about that. But the way that I do it is to always connect with theme and symbolism and think about our artwork as having these universal symbols in them. And if we can connect to those symbols, like something as simple as an umbrella being a symbol for protection, then we can communicate these stories that may be deep and personal in a really universal way.
I've never really thought about it that way. That's really awesome. That definitely opened up my mind, and I'm going to be thinking about that a little bit on the plane home. Anyone else want to share?
Yeah, I'll go. First of all, I'll never think of an umbrella the same way again after that. It's deep. For me, you know, I kind of want to showcase the art of paying attention. You know, when I was growing up, I've always been very distracted. My mind is always going like, you know, 100 miles an hour all the time. I'm thinking of a lot of different things. And for me, photography is a way to slow down and really pay attention to the things that are going all around me. And you know, there's just something about photography that allows you to kind of like stop time and just capture one moment that everyone else might have missed. But if you're really paying attention, you're able to, you know, capture it and showcase it. And yeah, for me, it's just that, paying attention.
Beautiful. So everyone up here as an artist, we all have our own signature style, right? Everyone has that one thing that kind of makes them stand out amongst other photographers. You can always tell when someone has a really great style because you don't know whose photo it is, but you can just pinpoint and be like, that's that guy. So what is it that, what do you guys do that makes it, your signature style? What's your thing?
Mine's probably I love dark tones. I'm all about like colors and different tones, teals and greens, and I also like a lot of low, like just shallow depth, like blurry hands and like the eyes. Like on portraits, I like to get like the eyes really crisp and like just have blurred out effect type of stuff. So I would say that's probably more my style.
I'd agree.
And I feel that for me, my goal with photography will always be to capture authentic, organic moments. I'm fascinated by humans, by human emotions, and just people in general. So I feel for me, a photo for me has to say something. I want you guys to look at my photo and I want you to feel something. Maybe, it can be happiness, sadness, but as long as I do that, for me, it's important. And then I feel like I do a lot of reflections. I play a lot with reflections. And so I feel that for me, a lot of people say that, when I can tell that it's your photo because of all the emotion that you convey. And to me, if somebody says that to me, then I'm doing something right because that's what I love to do.
Yeah, just to expand upon that as well. I mean, I think most of us would agree that in a day and age where we're creating what we're creating and wanting to share it with other people, I think engaging that emotional response from you guys is kind of generally the focus. We only control so much of that from the creator standpoint, where we're making our choices out in the field and what we're shooting and how we're shooting it and how we're processing it, which vehicles or mediums, in which case that story or that narrative ultimately lives on. But that idea of emotional reaction to what we're doing in each of our different genres, to people to be able to relate to what we're attempting to show them, I think is kind of the idea, that conduit that we're trying to make that connection. For myself, if you look through my portfolio, I kind of feel that I treat most of my images more individually than collectively as part of an overall scope, because I feel that each different story has something unique to tell or to share. And because I photograph a wide variety of things, I feel it's harder to have that easily accessible common thread across everything. But if you do look through all of my images, you look through all my portraits, you look through my wildlife work, you look through my landscape work, I feel there is that common tone or thread of feeling engrossed or ingrained in a story that you didn't have necessarily the opportunity to experience yourself, whether it's through my travel work or through connecting with another individual. And I think in our own way, we're all attempting to do that, to figure out our own vision or version of what that means to us, and then hopefully that we're successful in conveying that to you guys, and you guys are completing the other side of it to relate to our hopefully shared experience.
So what keeps you guys motivated to create?
Honestly, I think, especially with photography, just delving into other art forms and seeing, whether it's video, paintings, any kind of art really, just seeing how many great artists there are out there, and especially when we're surrounded by so many like amazing creatives, and just seeing a constant stream of, kind of like how everyone else is growing, keeps me inspired to always, try to get the most out of myself, because I always see what Kobe's doing. He's always, off somewhere doing something amazing. And I'm like, oh man, anytime I slack, all I have to do is go see what he's doing. I'm like, all right, maybe I need to like step it up a little bit. And that's the case with, a lot of my friends and other creators. And I think if you kind of like, the beautiful thing about social media is that you can curate it your own way. And if you're following the right people, I think it's very easy to just be inspired by what you see every day.
Absolutely. First off, thank you. I appreciate that. And I agree. I think for me as well, the idea to create is, I found it to actually be less about myself and more so about the stories that I'm seeing out there. Because I do travel work, it's kind of, I feel that is the most natural or organic way for that to go, where I'm trying to have and capture experiences that I can then share with other people that, again, aren't going to be as fortunate. It's a reality that not everyone's going to be able to go to Antarctica or to go to Patagonia or to go to East Africa and do these things. And so I'm trying to hopefully do justice to these subject matters, whether it's through Mother Nature, whether it's through wildlife, whether it's through another human being, and have this intimate, unique experience that I hopefully capture as well as I can, and then share that with other people, because to me that's the addiction. The addiction is not only the creation aspect of it, but also sharing and connecting with other people. And coming back to social media, that's why I love it so much. I know the question wasn't tied to that, but photography and social media are intertwined in the sense that it allows us to have these conversations, sometimes without words, that allows us to communicate and share, making the world a smaller place and allowing us to hopefully understand either each other better or other countries better or other cultures or ideas or belief systems, and to be able to find that common bond.
And I believe that the act of creating, whether what you're creating is good or bad, will inspire other people to create, and that can save people's lives and change people's lives. So I think that's why it's so important.
So based off your guys' answers, I'm going to go a little off script real quick. So that's the motivation side, but what about the burnout side? Because as you're traveling all the time, there's a lot of pressure to constantly create, and you're out and about all the time. And how do you guys deal with burnout?
For me, just quickly, I'm going to stop talking, I promise. For me, I mean, I have a 7-year-old son, and I have a wife at home who is essentially a single mom for usually 5 to 7 months out of the year. That's just the honest truth, out of how our lifestyle have been construed. And I think ultimately, for me, it comes down to two things. One, involving my family as much as what I do. I take my family around me, around the world with me. We're homeschooling my son, so his classroom becomes the world, which has always been our idea with the lifestyle that we have. But more so coming down to the creation side of it, I think when you work on passion projects, when you work on things that you really care about, when you're taking on assignments or just creating things that you're personally connected to, I don't feel the burnout because it's something that I want to be doing. Like, I've been doing this for 12 years, so I'm fortunate to be in a place where I'm not working on something I don't want to be on. Like, if I didn't want to be here with you guys, I wouldn't be here. Like, I could have better things to do, but I don't. I want to be here doing this. I want to go on each project I'm working on. It took a while to build to get to that space because I think all of us start off with taking every single job we possibly can to either make ends meet or to figure out what our voice is. But getting to that place to be able to say no and to only focus on things that you actually truly care about, I think makes a big difference. And to me, the moment that this becomes work, like I own a couple of different companies, I travel a lot, I work a lot, but it's not work to me. I love it. And if I didn't construct my businesses the way that I have, I wouldn't be doing this now because I would have burned out. And I think that that's key, regardless of what you're constructing or how you're constructing it, to do so that you can mitigate those challenges as best you can by focusing on doing things that you're passionate about. Because if you're trying to force creativity, it's just it's a really bad experience, in my personal opinion.
Yeah, I think to add to what Kobe's saying here is I think it's, when you kind of start out, like you said, you're forced to take a lot of jobs. But at some point, and at first I was doing a lot of things that I didn't really enjoy photographing. And there was a period where I kind of just like, anytime I saw a camera, I just, in my mind, I correlated it to work. And there was a point where I was like, I can't do this anymore. And that's actually when I kind of like put my camera down, I picked up my phone, and I was just like walking around shooting things that I really enjoyed shooting, and kind of like regained the passion for it. And the more passionate I became, the more, I guess, people noticed, and that's when I started to get work for, shooting things I actually enjoyed shooting. And then it started not to seem like work. And so after that, for like, for example, all the music festivals and concerts and things that I shoot, there are months where I'm like, in a different city for weeks, just shooting music festivals, and these are like 3 days, and you're doing a ton of walking, and people are like, how do you do that? Doesn't it get tiring? And I'm like, no, because I really, really love doing that. It doesn't seem like work. When I'm doing it, it's kind of like, wow, this is awesome. Like, I can't believe I'm this lucky. But with that said, there does come a time where you kind of like need to take some time off and put your mind towards other things, whether it's, learning something new, just, taking care of yourself like mentally and physically. it's good, I feel like, to take a break every once in a while, and I think we're all lucky enough to be at a point in our careers where we can do that. But I also know a lot of people that don't really take the time to take care of themselves, and I think it's super important. Yeah.
So it sounds like the correlation was do what you love to do, and it's much more rare to burn out because you're doing something you enjoy, but to take time for yourself when you need it because everyone needs it. Love yourself, right?
Love yourself.
With that said, video. How many of you guys are incorporating video into your work?
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
Everyone?
I mean,
Yes.
a little bit, I guess. We're all starting to do a little bit, I guess, but I guess he's doing a little bit more than us.
Okay, so now that I know all you guys are incorporating video into your work, what has that process been like from going from because you guys are all photographers first and foremost, correct? What was that like going from pure photography to incorporating video, and do you guys feel as confident in your video capabilities as you do in your photography?
I'll go ahead and say no. And the reason I can confidently say that is because I always outsource for my video work. So I'm still a photographer at heart. Like, that's still my main source. But I think it's undeniable to say that the industry hasn't shifted or changed, or at least companies that you may want to work with or assignments you might get have been integrating more film into or asking for more video work. And so for me, I work with a series of amazing videographers and cinematographers that will create or integrate film or video campaigns into things we're doing with either conservation or more standard marketing campaigns and pieces like that, in which case my role becomes more of a director than actually a videographer. So which is a little bit different, but was a very different headspace for me as well, to try to wrap my head around telling a unique story and being more in charge of directing someone else to doing what they're doing, and also having the confidence in the people that I'm working with to let them be the creatives and say, this is my vision, this is what I want to do, now you run with it. Was a great exercise in both patience and humility, and I mean, overall, I think to me it's been great integrating it. But yeah, to be honest, I hire out for it. So.
For me, I feel that being a photographer nowadays is hard. And I say this because everybody's doing it, you know? So it has become so competitive, and you always have to be one step ahead of everybody else. And in my mind, I was like, how am I gonna do this, you know? So I was just taking photos and I wasn't doing any videos. And then I was like, I saw people like them starting to get into video. So I was like, okay, I need to learn video. So I started just going on YouTube every day and just, you know, watching a million videos a day until I taught myself how to start using Premiere Pro. And now I just, you know, I'm not the best, of course, but at least I can say, oh, if a client comes up to me and says, can you do a 1-minute video? I can say absolutely yes. Before, I used to say, no, I'm sorry, I don't know how to do video. But it's like, you have to constantly teach yourself in this business if you want to stay on top, because if you don't, you're going to be stepped all over, and you don't want to do that.
Yeah, for me, before photography, I was always very much into film and cinema, and I've always been super introverted. So in high school, while everyone was partying, I was the guy walking to a Blockbuster and renting out some movies. I might be dating myself by saying I'm going to Blockbuster, but I always had a deep love for cinematography, and even before I kind of knew that I wanted to be a photographer, I wanted to be a movie director, so I always look up, you know, how to be a director. And I was always just fascinated by the idea of capturing, you know, whereas photography, it's one frame, videos, you know, like 60 frames a second, 24 frames a second, and you know, every one of those has to have some sort of meaning. And I feel like my photography work was very inspired by, you know, my favorite directors, you know, Scorsese, Christopher Nolan, Fincher, all these amazing guys. And like Paola said, in our world now, it's gotten so competitive that whenever I get, you know, pitched for a campaign or a job, they're like, oh, do you do video? And at first I was like, no, mainly because I wasn't as confident as a videographer as I am as a photographer. But eventually you kind of just gotta bite the bullet and, you know, say, yeah, let's do this. Let's see what happens and dive in. With that said, I think whereas photography can be a solitary thing, and you could be like a one-man bandman and just like do it all yourself. I think video has to be much more of a team effort. So I've definitely, made a lot of connections and made a lot of friends who are amazing at what they do video-wise. And I've kind of really enjoyed taking the role of a director or like director of photography and kind of just like outlining my vision and working with a team to bring that to life. And I think it's very fulfilling when you can have a team and work towards a common goal and see it come to life together. And that's kind of been my journey with video so far. But I'm always learning, and when I do take time off photography, I'm always going back and watching movies and watching films and trying to pick up different techniques, whether it's lighting or composition or anything.
Yeah, I think the cool thing about video is it can be collaborative, or there's guys like Sal. I'm sure you guys have seen Adorama's Through the Lens series, and Sal, if you don't know, Sal shoots those episodes by himself. So that's one person flying, traveling, all the gear, setup, everything. And so there's a lot of capabilities, with video. But it is cool because unlike photography, if you want to have 10 people, 20 people, 100 people, you can really put that many people to work on doing something, which is beautiful. Still on the subject of video, has anyone directly seen the income or revenue of their business grow by either adding video services, shooting video themselves, and or hiring it out?
Absolutely. I mean, companies will pay exponentially more for video work tied in with stills. Hands down, not even close. For the most part, obviously it depends on the needs of the company, but I could easily say that the trend's happening right now of, between things like YouTube and Venmo and other places picking up steam. I think that more companies want dynamic content, and you can easily charge more, sometimes even double or triple the prices depending on which companies you're talking about.
We're gonna move on to travel now. I don't want to ask any cheesy cliche questions, but I am curious because I think travel's a phenomenal teacher. Some could say it is the ultimate professor, and so I'm just curious if each of you would like to share the biggest thing that you guys have learned while traveling.
Well, for me, I don't really travel as much as everybody over here, so it's probably better off they answer this question.
Well, for me, I was actually born in Venezuela, and I lived there until I was 12 years old. And growing up, I lived in I lived in the capital, but in a very small section of it, and all I knew was Venezuelans, and my first big travel was when I moved here, and it was like a huge culture shock just seeing even other people that spoke Spanish and how different they were, and I was like, whoa, what's going on here? And then, growing up and now that I've been able to travel more as a photographer, not only do you learn about different cultures, but one thing that always struck me is how similar we all are at the core. And just, going to other countries and seeing that a lot of the people that I've met, either, we share all the same sentiments, the same values, whether they're here or they're across, in another continent. There are so many things you share, and I feel like now with social media, the world is even more connected. So there's just like a common thread in a lot of the places that I've gone to, with people kind of just sharing a lot of the same ideals. And for me, I don't know, it was just mind blowing.
My big takeaway from travel has been how different cultures sort of read into stories, and how story is not a consistent thing across cultures. And a quick story about this is I did an image where I was wearing a white dress and I'm laying in a bed, and I went to India and then asked this group that I was working with in India, what do you think this is a picture of? And they all said that it was a picture of death. And I was really surprised because I was working with a group of survivors of human trafficking, and so I specifically chose images that I thought would not be triggering in any way, and then they thought this was a death image, and to me it was an image about dreams and nice things, and they said, well, we bury our dead in white here, so to us this is a dead woman on a bed. And that was really eye-opening for me to realize that depending on how you grew up and what your associations are, there are so many different ways we can interpret stories. And I've really started to look in now to all these different cultures and how a different culture might interpret what I do.
I agree with everything that's been said so far. I would, in my experience, I find that that regardless of the differences that I do see out there, that we do see, I think it's actually, I feel that it's brought me closer towards the collective humanity and different, countries and cultures and belief systems and ideals, because I find that there's so much more that we have in common than that we have apart, and there certainly is differences between different companies or countries and between different cultures. But for me personally, on more of a personal note, the reason that I got into photography because I had this love of travel, because I had this love of experience, and early on when I was 17, I realized that it was being outside my element that really made me happiest at the time. I went on a Habitat for Humanity kind of trip when I was 17 down to Costa Rica when I was still in high school. And at the time, I was kind of a jerk, and I complained the entire time, and it was hot. We were building schools and laying concrete, and I was just, was one of those 17-year-old kids. And in retrospect, a few weeks later, I just realized how eye-opening and challenging and amazing it was, and how it shifted and changed the narrative of what I found important. And I find that has helped me to understand my, not only how I got started, but kind of what I get out of it, because I think there is this two-sided story where, yes, I want to connect to other people out there, and I want to understand and find common ground, but at the same time, I constantly want to push the boundaries of where I feel comfortable, because I find that's when I learn the most. That's when I appreciate things the most. That's when I grow the most as a human being, as an artist. So I want to be in places, I started my career buying a one-way ticket to Southeast Asia and living there for 3 years with the only thing that I reserved or figured out was where I was staying the first night when I landed in Bangkok. And that helped exemplify that idea of wanting to have these unique experiences and wanting to make connections, but letting it happen organically, and to challenge myself to see how I handled the pressure of what was happening, and quickly realized that it was very addictive, and still is to this day. I love that. I love that what travel helps me learn about both myself and the world, and oftentimes at the exact same time.
Thank you for sharing. So we only have 5 minutes left. Would you guys like us to go into the business of content creation and really kind of talk about how these people are making money and the different streams of income and how they go about that? Or do you guys want to open things up to a Q&A? First one? Okay. How do you guys make your money, and what's the main source of income? What's the main, I guess, task, service thing that you guys are doing that produces the bulk? And then what are the other revenue streams that are necessary to really put the picture together?
You want to start on that end? I've been talking a lot. I'll go last.
What?
Yeah. You want to start, Monaris?
To me, one of the questions that I get asked the most is, how do you make money if you're a street photographer? Because people have that mentality that, street photographers don't make a lot of money unless you sell prints, make a book. But I've been fortunate enough to combine my vision, the way that I see the world, with traveling. So a lot of the times, clients hire me to go to different parts of the country and document the place. I also do a lot of work that I don't like to do. Obviously, we have to survive, we have to eat. So I shoot a lot of events. I do sneakers. So pretty much I do everything that I can, but most where I get my income is traveling with tourism boards, and I also sell my work. And that's pretty much it.
So for me, I get paid, I literally take on every single job when it comes to photography. I don't care what it is. I'll do shoots for baby diapers, regular portraits for people. I don't care what it is. I shoot everything. So I get paid from doing, regular photo shoots that I do. I also do weddings. Social media obviously plays a big part because from the following, I get reached out from different brands and stuff, to promote them. But yeah, it's just taking every job pretty much.
Yeah, for me, when I when I started out, I was doing weddings, engagements, birthdays, headshots, all these different things. And when you do that, it adds up. It's a lot of work, but it adds up. And like I said, once I kind of like burnt myself out doing all of those, that's when I started shooting stuff that I really wanted to shoot and putting it on my Instagram. And for me, my Instagram has always kind of been more about what I'm doing at the time. There's never been like a curated, like single specific subject in it. And over time, it's kind of paid off because different companies and agencies have seen, kind of like a varied subject matter. So, sometimes I might be traveling and it'll be landscapes, but sometimes if I'm in New York, I'll do street photography. If I'm meeting some cool people, I'll do portraits. If I go to a show, I'm doing music. And I think a lot of companies have realized kind of just that I'm able to shoot a lot of different things. And with that, I've been able to kind of like lock down a few different deals with different agencies. And one funny thing is I went to this food event and they're like, oh, do you like shoot food photography? I'm like, I've never really shot food, but I love food and I enjoy it. And I think I can shoot it, just put it by some nice light and compose it nicely. And I started shooting for them, and through that I started getting, I got some work shooting for different liquor companies. And like Paola said, sometimes you just have to like bite the bullet. I'm like, all right, this could be cool. So that's one of them. Prints is always a good revenue stream. One of the odd ones was...
Hold on, I have to stop you there. Is it really, you sell prints?
Yeah.
Okay. I always ask people about the print thing because a lot of people sell prints, but most people, when I sit them down one-on-one and say, do you really sell prints? I often get, well, actually, I make most of my money here, and then I sell prints from time to time.
No,
so.
how I do it is I've partnered with different galleries here and there. I don't have a dedicated section on my website, but I'll partner with a gallery and kind of just give them a few photos. And I don't like selling like, hundreds of the same print. I kind of like to make them exclusive. And once I sell one photo, maybe like 20 runs of it, I'll never sell that photo again. That's what I like to do. A lot of people might have different strategies. Another thing was when Instagram came out with stories, I was kind of very active in showcasing my lifestyle and just, putting what I was doing on there. And eventually a few companies started contacting me and they're like, oh, hey, we like the way you tell stories. Do you want to do stories on our channels? And we'll pay you for it. And I was like, oh, you want me to just like do stories on your account and like not put anything on mine? They're like, yeah. So I've actually had some work just, creating Instagram stories for different companies. That was kind of random. But yeah, I would say those are my main revenue streams. Also, one thing that I do advise is now there are so many different platforms. I think it's important to share as much as you can on across different platforms, and also not make it the same thing. So like, I don't like when someone puts like, an Instagram post and they put the same post on Twitter and they put the same post on Facebook and then on Tumblr. It's like, why am I following you on all of these if I'm seeing the same thing? I like to kind of keep a different, voice on every different platform. And those platforms have approached me to do work with them just because I'm so active on different ones, and it is very taxing, but pays off, and I recommend everyone does it.
Okay, I make money in a few ways, but unlike most people, I would rather like be a cashier than do anything with my camera other than exactly what I do. So I don't use my camera for anything but the dark, weird, creepy stuff. I sell my images, fine art, limited edition prints through galleries, museums, private collections, things like that. I license my images for book covers and album art and things of that nature. I do commissions for book covers and album art, and every once in a while for just like specific people if we're in alignment. I also am a photo educator, although I haven't done that really properly for a couple of years. And I'm a motivational speaker, like totally outside of this photo stuff.
That's really cool. I'm curious, what type of motivational speaking? Is that
I do speaking mostly to do with art in general and how art can open up your life and this is a very long answer, so I don't have a good answer for you in one sentence, but generally about how art can save lives, heal lives, push you forward in your life, stuff like that.
I would totally go to that talk. So I own a couple different companies, and my revenue streams I've tried to diversify as much as I possibly could. Kind of, starting 12 years ago and kind of seeing the change and the shift in the industry of what happened to stock photography and publications. I saw some very, very talented people that were part of the last generation of big name photographers really either struggle or completely just wipe out of the industry because they had all their eggs in one basket. And at the same time, I also realized quickly once I started doing this for a living that I went from having one boss and one job to the reality of having 50 bosses in a single year. And I too had to get to be at that stage for a few years to take every single job that I could. And to me, that was a little bit taxing. Like, we all have to do it to kind of build up, but it was a bit too much. And so that's why I began creating more of my own companies, my own publication arms, offering my own services. And so that helped free me up from having to work with companies that I didn't care about or work with, products that I wasn't really keen on. And so these days, I'd say about 40 to 50% of my living comes from photo education. This is workshops, video tutorials, presets, things of that nature. I'd say about 20 to 30% is like big marketing campaigns, 5 and 6 figure campaigns, working generally on a global scale. A lot for tech and travel companies and entities. I do quite a bit of image licensing as well, and there's some miscellaneous stuff in there that kind of fill into the last 10%. I don't do a lot of prints from my own space. I do a lot of image licensing, but not prints. I think it's a challenging, quite a challenging space these days for a lot of people to live in, and I know a lot of people that, again, used to make very healthy 6 figures, and then the rug was pulled out from under them when, Getty came in and bought Corbis and all sorts of stuff like that. So, definitely diversify what you guys are doing. I always say when I give talks about business and things like that, there's more money to be made now than ever in the history of this art form. It's just not typically in the same revenue streams that were there 10 years ago. So you have to get creative, you have to find niches, you have to figure out your own value and understand what that means to you because it is a changing environment. But there's a lot of opportunities out there.
I couldn't agree anymore. There's tons of opportunities, and for anyone out there, I'm sure anyone on this stage would be more than happy to answer any questions afterwards. Are we pretty much tight on time? Thank you guys all very much for coming out here and joining us on the panel talk this evening. Big thank you to Sony and Adorama and Danielle for putting on an awesome event. And come holler at us if you guys want to talk shop about some more business stuff, art, photography, whatever it may be.
Enjoy.
Thank you.
And on behalf of Adorama and Sony, I wanted to thank you all for coming, and thank you to all of our great presenters and panelists. We had a great time with you guys. At Adorama, our mission is to equip creators with the tools they need to do what they love, and that's what we're all here tonight for, and we're really proud to partner with Sony on this. So we hope you all have a great time, get a chance to try some new gear, grab a drink, and meet some new people. Thank you.